a storyteller? Are you an artist? Are you a historian? Or are you a photographer?
I would like to think there's a little bit of all that. You know, you can't help, if you're doing this over 50 years, you can't help but be very interested in history. And then, you know, looking back at my early days, I was in places that, now I had no idea, being with Tom Wolfe for Apollo 17 when he started to write the right stuff, to be with Hunter Thompson, on the campaign trails when, he was working, on his, and there was that creation of gonzo journalism. To be in these places that you can't believe, it's important to look back. That's how you know how to go forward. You become very aware of history. I sort of feel like I'm a little bit of, Karsh of Ottawa, where I just am just, taking portraits and decided, a few years back, there were so many tempting things like video and, journalism, so many other avenues I could have gone down. And I realized I was going to stay steady. Yeah. And that it felt, I know on some level it felt outdated or kind of like, an old idea. But I felt like I could take it all the way through to the end of my life. So, and that brings the history in, because then you have this kind of sense of history. It's a shame about this, because this is not really in any. It's kind of a rough chronological thing, but not really. It's just,
well, that's why I wanted to start backwards.
Yeah.
Because we'll work our way that way.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. This became more visual. It became more of a way to get from those rooms over to the screens, which are more in the last 5 years and the last year.
Does it ever get old?
No.
Looking at your work, and I mean,
No.
let's walk this way, because I mean, there's a point that I want to get to as a big fan of music, but does it ever get old to remember these photos and these images that you've taken?
I mean, I have the opportunity to look at this. Like when I do something like this, or I do a book, and that's where the books are really important.
For me, this is that image, right? The Yoko.
Right.
And
I mean,
as a Beatles
I go
fan,
in and out about its overplay, and John was insistent that he really wanted to be with Yoko, and so we just brainstormed, and I said, on the cover of Double Fantasy, they're kissing, and I said, romance is not dead. Let's do something like that. And literally just, my original idea was that Yoko would be nude as well, because being nude was not such a new thing for them. Anyway, they ended up, Yoko didn't want to take her clothes off, so I said, okay, go ahead, leave your clothes on. And then we had a Polaroid, and John looked at it and said, oh my God, that's our relationship. That really is. So the harrowing part of this is that hours later, on the very same day, John was killed.
I've heard that story, and I heard you tell it yesterday, but I thought about this sitting here. For you, at an emotional level, I think it was 5 hours later, what hit you, and what was the response from this photo?
I was a mess, and if you get me talking about it too much, I start to, right now I well up, because I go back to it, and I couldn't believe it. I got a call from Jan Winter saying Jan's description had been taken to Roosevelt Hospital. So I went over to the hospital and waited like everyone else outside to hear, and it was John. And it was just, it threw me. I mean, for, a good year, it really was confusing to me. But that, if you're a portrait photographer and you photograph people, they live and they die. And there's a lot of people in this room who aren't with us anymore. And so that even feeds the history. Sure. And it makes you want to be more responsible. The story changes. Suddenly, is this their last kiss, or is this a goodbye, or Yoko was amazing. I went to see Yoko within the next week, and wanted to make sure she was okay about running it, and she was perfectly fine, and she was encouraging, and she's a great artist in her own right, and she was very much believe in supporting the artist. Yeah.
Well, it's beautiful.
No,
and
thank
I
you.
think that's amazing. I want to get to the Stones now. If we keep doing music,
Oh, yeah.
right, we've got to go to
Well, the Stones don't
your
come-
time with the Rolling Stones.
But the Stones don't come out of anywhere. The frame here is shows the outside of the negative, and it is completely. You know, the thing that has not exactly saved me, but I've never ever strayed from the idea that I'm a photographer, and that's what I'm there doing. In fact, Keith Richards used to say, I would be at the foot of the stage, and he would say, you would never have any emotion. You would never be like, you know, like smiling or anything. It was just like deadpan. I mean, I just literally.
Got no satisfaction? Sorry, I had to.
No. I was so interested in the photography. I was interested in
That's
taking a good
good,
picture, and I was focused on that. So I went on this tour. I went in 1975. Mick Jagger asked me if I would be the tour photographer. Robert Frank, who I admired and was a god to me, was the photographer for the 1972 tour. So I thought, okay, I'm going to try to make something out of this, and I just documented it pretty seriously. But I didn't really look at the work, you know, until years later.
Really?
You know, there wasn't. I mean, I was hired as their publicity photographer, and nothing ever got out. You know? I mean, I started off in the daytime. You know, I had tennis lessons set up at every hotel, which I ended up turning into completely a nocturnal person at night. You know, that's when they were up. And I mean, a rock and roll tour is not real. It's like you're speeding through, you know, through time and space so fast.